Hello, and welcome to the discussion about future of learning. My name is Padma, and I'll be your moderator for this virtual event. Joining us today will be Jasmeet Singh and his wonderful panel of leaders, followed by Sebastian Thrun, founder and chairman of Audacity. Few house rules for all of us. If you experience a technical difficulty anytime during this event, please do mention it in the Q&A box at the lower end of your screen, and we will do our best to assist you. Please note that you are part of a larger audience today, and all attendees will be in listen-only mode for the duration of this event. This conversation is being recorded, so you can give all your attention to the discussion. You have an opportunity to pose questions to the panel. Type in your questions at any time during the event in the Q&A box. Please also participate in the polls that will appear on your screen. We commence with the panel discussion led by Jasmeet, followed by the keynote address by Sebastian Thrun. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started.
Thank you, Padma, for the wonderful kickoff. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmeet Singh, and I lead manufacturing for Infosys. Hello again to all of you on a Friday morning, afternoon, evening, whichever part of the world you are in. I hope you and your families are doing well in these unprecedented times. Today, I have an illustrious panel and actually a celebrity speaker discussing a topic that is very close to my heart: the future of learning. This event is split into two parts, as Padma had said, starting with the panel discussion, which will be followed by a keynote address by Sebastian Thrun. As we gather virtually today, we see a world where work, workplace, and workforce are all being disrupted. In this environment, companies skilled at creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge, and who modify their behavior to reflect new insights, are the ones that are going to be most resilient. These always learning organizations rely on data to find problems, dare to experiment, and learn from their own experiences and best practices of others. In view of the recent crisis, further driving this agenda has become crucial for survival. Without further ado, let me welcome my illustrious set of panelists to this discussion. My first panelist is Ray Wang, who is the principal analyst, founder, and chairman of Silicon Valley-based Constellation Research. He is widely respected for his industry views and provocative insights. Welcome to the panel, Ray.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Sure. My second panelist is Daniela Proust. She's the head of Global Learning Campus at Siemens. She has been leading the learning transformation of Siemens and driving a shift to innovative digital learning journeys in the future. I'm so delighted to welcome you to the panel as well, Daniela.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. My third panelist is Teresa Martin Retortillo. She is the Executive President of Exponential Learning at IE University, which is ranked number 1 in online MBA globally. Teresa brings a rich experience in enterprise consulting and also academia. Welcome aboard, Teresa.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And my fourth panelist is Thirumala Arohoi. We call him Thiru. He is Vice President and Head of Education, Training, and Assessment, and of course our learning platform, Wingspan, at Infosys. Thiru has been leading efforts for transforming learning, not only within Infosys, but also with our clients. Welcome to the panel, Thiru.
Hi, Jasmeet. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Sure. So as you can see, we have a great panel out here. And so let me start the discussion right away with my first panelist, Ray Wang. So, and just before I start, I just want to point out that there will be a polling question coming up on the screen. Appreciate if you can respond to the same. Ray, now you touch many clients across several organizations. How is learning evolving in large organizations? Could you highlight the key initiatives being taken to adapt to the current circumstances?
You know, Jasmine, it's definitely a change in terms of how we're learning. And one of the things that's shifted is we've gone away from didactic, classroom, scheduled type of learning to a little much more fluidity, right? And that fluidity and the dynamic learning that's available is really based on demand. What are things that we need to go teach? What are things that people want to learn? How do we bring those marketplaces alive so people can be successful? And then also trying to figure out, you know, what is the career path? What are the skills that are required going forward? Now, one of the things that we're seeing a lot trending, and I don't think everybody's calling it this way, but there was something written sometime back by Harvard's, you know, curriculum, one of the Harvard deans that were looking at, you know, its entire lifetime of curriculum. And it was a 60-year-old curriculum that he was focused on, no, meaning that we're learning all the time. It's lifelong learning, and it's one of those things that isn't going to go away. And so it's about finding the skills that people are interested in that make sense. You know, a great example, for example, is product management. I started as a product manager. There were no rules. Like I have no idea, like, you know, how we learn product management, but it turned out that, you know, when I look back now, like 20 years later, there were courses on product management. I wouldn't know where to begin, right? And so, you know, so you never know what it is you're about to learn. And I think one of the most important things is, in some cases, it's also about learning how to learn. That becomes important.
Sure. No, thank you, Ray, for that. And again, going back to the enterprise side of it, you know, I also want to ask you in terms of what, according to you, are the major gaps in the learning strategies of large enterprises, and how do you think that they can address those?
Yeah, and as some of you saw in the polling questions, a lot of this stuff is really trying to figure out how we can actually make time for people to learn on their pace, on their, you know, in their environment, in the modality that makes sense for them. That's one of the big areas is setting out that time to learn. And that starts by thinking about the career path that you want to go, the career trajectory, helping people coach them through, you know, those opportunities, figuring out what skills might be important. Maybe, hey, it's time to figure out Angular and Swift, and that's something you've always wanted to do, but you never made time for it. How can we help you do that? Or maybe you're trying to do and improve your diversity and inclusion training, and that's something that you've never had a chance to do, and it's part of your leadership package. Right. So it's helping people identify those opportunities for them to do that. And then, of course, it's also creating that interaction environment that reinforces that spirit of learning. I think a lot of times inside organizations, we're just so heads down, we don't have time to think, and organizations are starting to realize that.
Sure. And while, no, thanks for the insights, Ray. And while, you know, the polling question was on, I see the results also come in. You know, it's being called out that the culture of lifelong learning is one of the challenges, that 34% of the responses were, you know, voting for that. And the second highest was lack of time for learning. And I'll dive into that a little bit further with, I guess, my next speaker, who's Daniela. who obviously is from Siemens. So Daniela, and there will be another polling question that will come up soon. But before that, if you represent Siemens, obviously it's a very large organization. I would love to hear from you as well as the audience. What were the drivers for Siemens to embark on a comprehensive learning transformation? And what is your vision of the future of learning for Siemens?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So just to give a bit of context, Siemens indeed is quite big. So we have around 380,000 employees all around the world. And our business is also very significantly. So we are a technology provider active in the fields of energy, but also healthcare, mobility, large infrastructure, if you will, and also industry. So what we have to cover as a learning function, therefore, is also pretty comprehensive and very broad, if you will. So
Right.
when we look at the digital transformation in general as a trend, of course, that is a trend that impacts our businesses significantly. And us as a technology provider, we would rather be taking part in shaping the digital transformation rather than be shaped by it. But what does that mean? That means we need to stay ahead of the curve. We need to know what's next. And therefore, we also need to always think through what are the relevant skills and competencies that we need in order to be able to adapt to the respective markets, and to come up with the solutions that then fit in the market environment and in the needs. So that was basically let's say the situation that we were thinking about. How do we now have to adapt as a learning function to best cater for Siemens, that it's successful and future fit? And for me, it all comes down to accelerating time to competency. We were in the past very, let's say, disciplined and rigorous and with a lot of quality thinking about what is the right content that we have to provide. How can we develop it? What is the best program? And it simply took too long to be able to then put it into a program and then to make it available that then it can be booked half a year later. This does not work anymore in these times in digital transformation, right? So we were thinking through how can we basically increase reach, so reach more, ideally all employees. How can we increase speed, so reach our employees whenever it's needed with the latest relevant content to their topic or their role and environment? And also, how can we therefore scale up very quickly, flexibly, and adjust with the right content and bring it to our people? That was basically what was driving us. And when you ask me about the picture of the future for learning, I see a trend that we also see for our businesses. So what we are developing is we are building a learning ecosystem for Siemens. So we have a strategy that we have a business ecosystem strategy with a strong technology at the center. But it basically means that we are looking at the best partners for different content topics that we can plug in the relevant content topics and make it available, be it internal partners or external partners in various formats, from e-learning to virtual learning to classroom, all of that being found at one place, our learning platform, which is called My Learning World at Siemens.
Yeah, no, wonderful. No, again, thanks so much, and it's great to be working with you on this journey. It's indeed exciting. I wanted to kind of touch upon two things that came out in the polling question, in actually both the polling questions. One, when Ray was talking, one of the things that came out was as a challenge was the culture of training, right? Culture of learning. And by the way, in your environment, I know it's not necessarily only about digital, it's across the entire enterprise, any kind of learning. So I would love for you to comment a little bit about, the culture and how you're changing that. And at the same time, the next polling question actually had no surprises. It talked about content and quality, which is something that you touched upon. And there is always a debate, content versus the experience. And I would love for you to weigh on that aspect as well. And feel free to, I guess, Teresa as well as Thiru to jump in and, participate also in the conversation.
Yeah, thank you. So learning culture for us is a fundamental topic. So what we think is we put the learner at the center of everything we do. It's all about creating the best employee experience that we can create, and that consists of many different items. It consists of relevant content in high quality, different formats, personalized, available. It contains of the experience, how then the quality of the content really is. It's about community engagement, getting in contact with people, exchanging about what you have learned, and also to have coaching elements, mentoring included, that you can exchange on, as Ray was saying, how you do along your career journey. So I think the learning culture is changing significantly, fundamentally. And we were asking ourselves on how we can influence mindset and behavior to become a learning organization in the digital age. Or you can also look at it differently if you want to. I think learning culture is a topic, but learning is also a topic that changes the overall company culture, if you will, not only the learning culture, right? So if you bring innovative learning experiences to the learners, it does something to the enabling environment, to the work environment. So it's a fundamental lever to change the overall company culture. So what we did, we developed a comprehensive communication and experience campaign, which is called My Growth. It is focusing very much on the employee. It's very employee-centric. It's very friendly, more the inspiring type of communication. And we really try to take our people along. Because we did about a year ago a survey, and also what we see here, we asked our people, what are you experiencing? What do you think? Where do we stand in terms of learning? And the issue of time, fear, permission came up. We even heard comments like, I feel a bit boxed in, so I wouldn't even really know where I should start. I also feel that I have to ask once a year after my performance evaluation, what would be the right thing for me to learn? So what we want to do is we want to give the ownership more to our employees and empower them that they do not only have the right, they should be completely self-motivated to learn continuously and lifelong. It's in their interest, it's in the interest of the organization, because only if the person grows, also the team can grow, and therefore the organization can grow. That's my view.
No, I think.
Thanks. And you want to comment on that a little bit?
If you can add on, I think I agree with what Daniela said. But also one important thing that we need to look into is, while content is important, quality is important, the pace at which the changes are happening, as Daniela was talking about, it is extremely important to create that ecosystem and the experience in such a way that you can easily kind of get in the right content, even if the content, according to me, this is my personal view, even if the content is not 100% to your liking, because no two people agree on what the content should be, right? There is no way you'll have everyone agree. But if you're making it experiential, if you're making it valuable so that they know whatever they learn, they can be applied immediately in a job, that actually enhances the entire experience. So what we have done at Infosys is we brought in great content from external partners. We have content internally, but we also made it bite-sized in such a way that what people like, what people want, they can just pick that only that part, and then other parts can be enhanced because the other learners can contribute to that particular learning. There's also this ecosystem of refreshing the content and other thing, but more making it experiential, hands-on. Daniela talked about personalized, which means don't give too much of information which is too much to consume, right? How do you make it meaningful and making it personalized for the learner to get what they want, and they can pull what they want? So that's how I look at it, Jasmine.
Sure. Teresa, from your side, I guess you do this for a living full time. But any thoughts on what Daniela and Thiru talked about? I guess it's the entire package. And one of the things when we were discussing earlier was also around the sense of achievement, which in your case, students, in Siemens' case, employees, and also in Infosys' case. What are you seeing as you look at your curriculum and your students?
So one of the things that I think really resonated of all the comments that have been made is the sort of a couple of things. One is the culture of learning as an overall wrap to getting people to actually drive their own careers. That culture of learning actually involves thinking about learning beyond consuming content and beyond going to courses. And this is coming from an academic institution, so please trust me on that one. It is about putting learning in the flow of work. So that culture of learning starts with actually making sure that within everyday, the everyday work, there is a culture of asking questions, a culture of mentoring and teaching that is absolutely fundamental. But if I go back to the 2 points that were raised earlier around the concern of lack of time and the need for relevant content, in my mind, we've gone through a phase where we put a lot of content available to employees to the point that it can be really overwhelming. Without the context, without the relevance for my current project, for my career advancement, all of that content, frankly, becomes meaningless. So a very important aspect is how do we curate that content? How do we actually rely, as Daniela was talking about, and Tiru as well, on an ecosystem that can actually help the learners guide through a more effective roadmap where you consume the content that is really, truly relevant for the job at hand, the project at hand. So I guess a lot of the comments that are true in global companies, again, doesn't matter whether it's Asia-based or European-based, are very much what we at IE University try to deliver as well on both our MBA programs, but as well on the open programs for lifelong learners. It's that concept of relevance and really using the time effectively to take whatever you're learning back to work. That connection is fundamental.
Right. No, thanks for that. I think it makes sense to kind of bring it all together. And in that sense, I mean, IE University actually calls out that it's for students who have, I guess, a lifelong learning objective, right? And the relevance at the kind of pace when you want it and to be able to apply it is going to be key. I also, wanted to ask you, I mean, you are rated number 1 in online MBA, and, there will be a poll question that should be coming up just now. I guess everybody in today's time is basically operating online. How do you see yourself differentiating? And because I think how you're going to be approaching that is also going to be insightful for many companies and other organizations to actually navigate that journey going forward.
Jasmeet, thank you for the question, because as we were discussing prior to this starting, everyone is jumping online now out of necessity. It turns out that for the most part, what they're saying is not necessarily the best online learning. It is what needs to happen to make sure that classes continue. So for a real powerful online learning experience, there needs to be a different approach. And clearly, the how you design the learning journey matters. Clearly, the technology also matters. But as in any digital transformation, it is not only about the tools. It is back to what we were talking about earlier, the culture, right? So it is about having faculty that is very comfortable, not only delivering and engaging with students online, but also in live sessions, but also engaging in forums, but also, so what surrounds the product and the experience is just as important. So how are we going to differentiate ourselves at IE? Well, we've been for 20 years trying different ways of blended education. For sure, we've made our fair share of mistakes, no question about that. But what is true is that we've developed a culture. We have faculty who is actually extremely comfortable trying new technologies. We work in a totally open ecosystem. But not only faculty, we have a staff that is actually geared towards making those online experiences very unique, very powerful, very rich. And so all of that surrounding matters as well. And that is, I would argue, the investment of many years. And so we hope we can still continue our differentiation. And at IU University, we know that everyone is going to catch up very quick, but we're already thinking about what the next level is, and the concept of liquid learning, and something we are investing a lot of thought and energy behind these days.
I would like to add one comment on the culture topic, because reflecting on what we heard from our employees, I was talking about the problem of lack of time, and also, am I allowed to, or do I have to be careful that somebody is watching and thinking I'm not working? We also heard a lot of enthusiasm and excitement and curiosity. And I think it is very important to also, when you talk about culture, not talk about good or bad, but just to talk also about a journey that you can build on the natural curiosity of people. People usually want to develop, they want to learn, they want to try out new things. So it's really, how can you move those roadblocks away while you also use these other elements and try to build on that and inspire people and ignite a passion for lifelong learning?
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, one of the most interesting things you can do is, take the top courses you need Udacity to figure out what's hot, right? And use that to reverse engineer what people want to do. And you can bring all that together, and it's pretty wild, right? So because you suddenly discover, oh, I didn't know people were interested in this, and then test that inside your organizations. And a lot of people are doing that. So.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And given the time that we are in, Teresa, I also want to ask you in terms of, we are not in a post-COVID scenario as of yet, but obviously I would love for us to get a sense of what is resonating right now in terms of learning across your university, and that will kind of tee me up nicely for Thiru as well.
Sure. So some of the skills that were relevant 3 months ago continue to be relevant today. So there's a shortage of skills in data. There's a shortage of skills in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity. I mean, no question, that hasn't changed in 3 months. And if I could venture a forecast, I think that would still be relevant this coming decade. The capabilities, the software capabilities around critical thinking and communicating and creating solutions to problems continue to be relevant. Now, right. The thing that we're seeing uniquely coming up as something very, very high demand is, how do we train managers and executives and to deal and operate in an environment of volatility, of ambiguity? And I'm not only talking about Corona. I'm talking about a person at Siemens or at Infosys, and tomorrow there's another reorganization, and whoever was your boss is no longer your boss, and whatever was your first priority no longer is your first priority, but your 10th. And that we see organizations constantly grappling with this need to change and evolve, and frankly, creating an environment where still in that change people can operate and deliver the results they're expected is increasingly important. And so we're putting a lot of thought around, how do we equip people to actually operate and still deliver in ambiguous environments? And how do we find the right balance between the technical skills, but also the softer skills to be able to continue making progress? So that's frankly, in this post-COVID area, very, very high on the list of things we need to teach people.
Sure. No, thanks. Thanks, Teresa, for that. And so let me go to Thiru. Thiru, because, we have been working on the concept of a live enterprise. And, obviously we got, I would say, thrown into this kind of a situation at a moment's notice, so as to speak, and talk about ambiguity. But could you touch upon, in the post-COVID or in this environment that we are in, how has learning changed? And you lead, Infosys is a 200,000 plus organization. You're responsible for training at scale and also helping clients. Could you share some insights in terms of how that transition has happened from a learning perspective for Infosys?
Absolutely, Jasmeet. You talked about live enterprise. I think becoming a live enterprise, I feel, is a very critical element, especially for all companies, no matter whether it is enterprises or even universities, right? So, what we have been doing in the last 2 years, to be frank, no one expected or no one anticipated a COVID like scenario. But what happened, if you look at the journey that we have been taking last 2 years, is we wanted to get into a mindset of anytime, anywhere kind of a culture of learning, which basically means no matter whether you are in a physical space, no matter whether you are at your home, how do you seamlessly switch context where you can do same learning while you are in the campus in a classroom, or if you're not able to do that, can you kind of seamlessly connect and learn from your home? So all the investments Infosys has made in the last 2 years was towards that, where even when we are training 10,000 trainees in Mysore, which is like our corporate university, even there, the students or the trainees, they used to learn on the platform. The educators used to engage them on the platform. So what is happening is you are teaching the teachers as well to kind of adapt to the new digital technologies. So that was one of the steps that we have taken as a live enterprise to see how do we become intuitive, how do we become responsive to any kind of situation. Now, fast forward to what happened in March when India was in a lockdown state. We had actually 9,000 trainees in the campus. We had to evacuate them. And when we evacuated them, it was just within 3 days. The team did a fabulous job of doing a planning. 3 days, everyone was evacuated. 5 days later, we started resuming the learning on the online platform, engaging the same way we have been doing. The trainees did not see a constraint, although there was some learning in the sense the connectivity was not as proper in remote parts of India. There were some devices issues and things like that. But then that also opened up other kind of learnings like offline learning and everything. So my view is, how do you adapt? How do you kind of survive in this scenario? Is don't box yourselves. And I think Daniel talked about boxed in initially. One kind of boxed in is if you start thinking there is a digital learning, there's a physical learning, there's a physical classroom, there's a digital classroom. If you start boxing in and compartmentalizing it, then you are going to be in a very big problem. Ideally, what we should do is, as a company, Infosys believes that we want to be in a situation where 100% of the employees should be able to seamlessly switch context, whether they are coming to office to work or learning at office, or whether they are at home and continuing it. If you are able to create that balance to switch context from a physical to virtual because you have invested in the digital infrastructure ecosystem, then I feel we have kind of managed it. The other point I want to add is it is important to also bring in element of knowledge management. Right, previous days we used to call knowledge management, which means typically, at least in corporates, when we do learning, we always think about it as an individual learning for individual. Whereas Daniela, I think, was telling that you learn if individual grows, team grows, company grows. So how do you bring the culture of organizational learning into the mix of team learning? You should not make the employees feel that you are learning for yourselves and you are becoming competent for yourselves. You bring in the element of all the organization learning, all the organization way of doing things, and then mix it so that as a learning team, if we are able to promote that aspect, then I believe that no matter what the situation is, we collectively can move forward.
No, well said. And again, I know your background very well. I mean, you were actually, and this is going to be a personal question from an experience standpoint. You were leading the delivery function, actually delivering for clients, responsible for that, and then became the head of a fairly large and strategic and important organization within Infosys, the education, training, and assessment organization. I guess that would have involved a significant amount of change from a learning perspective as well. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, but would love to see how you navigated that change, including what you brought to the table now on the other side, right?
No, I think, Jasmith, thanks for putting me in the spot, but I like answering this question in general. The reason is, whenever organization thinks of culture of learning, culture of one of the things that we always miss is the importance of moving the leadership, moving the management across functions, right? What happens is, again, the same concept of boxing in happens. You feel that someone is responsible for learning, someone is responsible for delivering work and everything. So 20 years or 21 years of my life, I was actually consuming what the learning department was providing to us. And when I suddenly moved there, for me, it was quite a bit of learning, because I used to have a lot of kind of what you call issues that I felt, why is learning team not doing that and all of that. When I came this side, the learning team talks about why is delivery team not able to think on different scenarios and everything. So how do you make sure that as a part of a ecosystem or the culture of learning as an organization, if you want to do, my belief is you need to move your leaders or you need to your managers across different functions. And when you do that, what happens is the best practices start following. You will start breaking the silos, and that is exactly what happened. And I was truly happy initially, even though I was a reluctant mover into the department. Amazing set of educators we have in ETA, and the way they think, they are passionate to kind of contribute to the company. And we just kind of said how we can kind of mix it up. How do we bring delivery ecosystem into learning? How do we become learning ecosystem into delivery? And my team actually has developed the platform. If you see the learning platform, it is not a delivery team that created, which means if the teacher is telling I am capable to deliver, when people are listening to you, they will actually learn quite comfortably. So if I have to summarize it, I think it's important to shuffle the team. Everyone has to learn, and then everyone has to break the silos to make things happen.
Sure. No, that's great, and obviously, you are also helping clients navigate and bring those learnings not only within Infosys but beyond as well. Um, I had the opportunity to look at some of the audience questions that have come in as well, and I think I picked one of the questions. We have talked a lot about, actually across all the panelists, about boxing in or being boxed in and trying to break that barrier, so as to speak. And I guess organizations have a responsibility as well to actually ensure that is not there. The question, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, is more in terms of how can you ensure that learning and work is all kind of integrated, that you don't make it separate, right? So I would love for some kind of things, maybe starting with you, Ray, if you can kind of give us some tidbits there, and then with Daniela.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I mean, I think, we are all working all the time, and the boundaries between work and life and all the things that are happening with us, that kind of integration is already like being challenged. And so what we have to do is really think about, what do we want to accomplish? How do we want to get there, and make part of that learning, that passion, that pursuit of what you want to accomplish. So for example, let's say you have aspirations to become a manager in the next 3 years. And you're a technical individual and you're really good at what you do, you want to start learning what those skill sets are. Like, what can I do to become a better leader? Maybe there's some areas that you want to get into new technology that you haven't really been able to get to before because you're so busy working on the current project that you're in. Then it's important to ask your manager and say, look, I'd love to spend more time working on this newer set of technologies. Let's say I want to be a blockchain expert, or I want to be an expert in AI, or I want to be an expert in Wingspan, right? So help me get to that, right? And find that. And so it's the dialogue, it's that taking the time to think about what you want to accomplish and then going out and making that part of that plan. It's not something you cram for. It comes throughout over the period of time, over the years. But more importantly, it's also finding the right set of mentors that can help you guide you to the right path as well.
Right. And Daniela, so in a sense, how do you integrate learning and work in Siemens, right? Particularly with the new vision that you have painted, that you so well articulated earlier.
I think that is a simple question and a difficult answer to give, and one that is not just one-sided. So I think technology enables a lot. So because you can modularize content, you can put different formats in, so you can have smaller portions of learning that you can easier fit into your schedule, if you will. I see that more, it's almost like being on a train station, on a platform, that you can change trains from one to next. You can decide where you hop on, where you hop off. That's a bit how I see the learning going forward. And that is no matter the format, you can also then include some classroom elements for the topics that are relevant to you. So that I think there in essence, the flexibility increases massively. But for me, I think as a company or as an organization, you simply have to make learning a priority. And that for me is very much a leadership topic. So you need to give it space, and you need to say that it's really relevant for the company's success. And therefore, it has to come from the top. But at least to my experience, even more important is the middle management, because that is the direct interface to each employee. So that is what we are working on very, very intensely, to have an active dialogue with our leaders and managers, that they understand their important role in creating an enabling environment, that people then feel, yes, I have to make it a priority for myself, and I'm allowed. It's even valued. I even get some appreciation for it if I do so. So for me, there's not a single answer to that.
Yeah, no, it's you rightly put it. It is a simple question, but a very, very complex journey. And I guess learning success will be dependent on that. Thiru, you talked about tidbits, bite-sized chunk of learning. I guess the sense of achievement. So, over to you in terms of how do you make that learning and work kind of integrated and seamless in a way?
I think what happens is when you talked about the aspect of delivery and learning, you need to be involved. I think what we try to do is, when we do this bite size or whatever, we kind of created something called simulators. What I mean by simulators is like a flight, the pilot kind of learns how to fly without actually flying a plane using a wonderful simulator. How can you create a fail-safe environment where you take the risk, and there is a telemetry validating that you are learning but you are also failing, but it's a fail-safe environment. So when you create those fail-safe simulators mimicking the individual work environment of the respective clients that we are working, for example, what happens is the trainees or the learners, when they are learning, they are not learning in isolation. They are actually bringing in a real life case study. If it is a banking product, because if you see, one good thing, Jasmeet, is every one of us is so involved in digital ways that you are pretty much in a digital world outside your work. Meaning, you know what a bank does, you know what you want from a bank, you know what you want from a retailer. So what you do is create an environment and ask the employees or ask the learners to try doing things in a fail-safe environment, practicing things what they learn. So what happens is, when they basically get out of it, they are actually that much more learning how to do things. And because they already failed and they learned so many times in the simulator, when they come into the practical way of applying, they are that much more ready for the actual work.
Oh, fantastic.
Can I jump in?
No. Yes, please, Teresa.
Yeah.
So I love the commentary around the fail-safe environment. And I think, frankly, the false, in my mind, trade-off between learning and work, it actually reminds me back when I was, a young woman executive, and people used to ask me about work-life balance. So it's not like I work and I'm dead, and then I go out of work and then I start leaving. So they all go very tightly weaved together. So learning on the job and creating that fail-safe environment that you were referring to is important from a leadership standpoint, and that Mola was on. But I do think there's a part of it, which Ray was talking about, of really volunteering on certain projects and certain initiatives because they're important to your learning. And you can call them a learning initiative and a learning project and get the language and the permission and the air coverage to make sure you can actually dedicate time to that. Likewise, the people of us who are actually in the education world, there is no learning without a real time and real life project, because you need to actually apply the learning on something that is contextual and relevant. Otherwise, it frankly doesn't make any point. So bringing in work to learning is equally important.
Very true.
Absolutely. Yep, very true. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your thoughts and insights. Thank you for the great question. I think it kind of started a debate. Please don't go as of yet, because we have the Sebastian's session as well. So let me just wrap this session up. Thank you so much for the panel. Please don't go away, because Sebastian's session is coming right away. And I want to again thank the panelists for their insights. I think there is a exciting journey ahead for all the employees and all of us in our learning world. Thank you, Padma. Over to you for the next session, please.
Thank you so much. I mean, we could have definitely kept going on, right from understanding how do you take the digital transformation bull by the horns to ensuring that we stoke natural curiosity of people and ensure that the liquid learning is definitely around to ignite the passion for lifelong learning. I'm sure we definitely want to continue to listen to the panel, but then again, we do have an extremely dynamic next segment that's waiting for us. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Sebastian Thrun, founder and chairman, Udacity. Sebastian Thrun is a scientist, educator, inventor, and entrepreneur. As the founder and chairman of Udacity, Sebastian's mission has been to democratize education by providing lifelong learning to millions of students worldwide. He is also the founder of Google X, where he led projects including the self-driving car, Google Glass, and more. Previously, he led the Stanford racing team, whose robo, Stanley, won the DARPA Grand Challenge. Sebastian has been named the 5th most creative person in business by Fast Company, among the 50 smartest people in tech by Fortune, and highlighted in 50 Best Inventions of 2010 by Time Magazine. He's the first recipient of the inaugural Smithsonian American Ingenuity Award for Education, and is also featured in the recent film Lo and Behold, Reveries of the Connected World by award-winning writer and director Werner Herzog. May I invite Sebastian to talk to us about leadership in uncertain times.
Thank you so much, Padma. Jasmeet, thank you for inviting me. As you know, I'm a long-term partner of Infosys, and I think the panel with Ray, Daniela, Teresa, and Tiro was very enlightening. These are obviously challenging times for all of us, and every crisis is also an opportunity. Every crisis is an accelerant, which will make things go faster. And those who understand to utilize those moments will in the end emerge as a winner. Now, Udacity was born almost 10 years ago when I took a Stanford class online. At the time, I was a Stanford professor. I was teaching artificial intelligence, which at the time was not hot the way it is today. And my co-instructor and I decided to just put the class on the internet, which sounds archaic today. And we expected maybe 500 people to sign up. The next day, we had 5,000. On Sunday, 10,000. On Monday morning, 14,000. And there was a time when we realized, wow, there's something going on here. There's something going on that it's just different. Being at Stanford, there's never been a class of 14,000 students. So as the weeks went on, we got to 160,000 students in one class. So some of you here might have actually been in this class. I was interesting. I was teaching, and I probably became the most well-known professor at this moment because I was teaching 160,000 people. And of those 160,000 people, 23,000 finished. I taught the same course on Stanford's campus. So we had two groups of students. The one that were these highly selected Stanford PhD students, the people who believe they're the smartest in the world. And we had 23,000 finishers in the world. And when we stack ranked them, we realized that the best 412 people were outside Stanford, and the best Stanford student, the single best Stanford student, ranked number 413. I contacted many of those students and talked to them and say, who are you? Right? Like, how come you do so insanely well in a Stanford graduate level class and you're not at Stanford? And it turned out there's a huge number of incredibly smart, incredibly motivated people, like many of the listeners here today, who are every bit as smart as a strong Stanford student, but don't quite fit the admissions profile. Often the people I talk to were older. By older, I mean older than 17 or 18, okay, like maybe 25 or 30 or sometimes even 80. They were in circumstances that wouldn't allow them to go on campus. They had jobs, they had families, they were in emergencies. Some of them were single mothers raising children, others were soldiers in the war field. And I just realized there's a thirst for education that goes way beyond college education. Just to put this into perspective, colleges teach basically three types of degrees: bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. And those degrees were already invented in the 14th century. They found a document online, 1329, by the University of Vienna that mentions all of them. So there isn't exactly much innovation in education, except for, of course, the members of the panel today who really pushed education in a much, much better way. So the question arose, if there's a worldwide thirst for education, why aren't there universities that just operate worldwide? Why doesn't MIT open the doors? Why isn't there a worldwide IIT? Why isn't there a worldwide University of Oxford? Why do these universities close their doors to except for like a few hundred highly talented students? So I actually went around to MIT and Georgia Tech and many universities and asked, look, can we just open the doors for everybody? Like, so everybody has a fair chance. And universities don't like that. Universities want to be exclusive. They have this belief that all learning takes place between age 17 and maybe 24. They completely don't understand that learning is so much more than that. And they're not stepping up. There's one exception. Georgia Tech, together with Udacity, started an online master's degree and made it much, much cheaper. Went from 45,000 to 6,600. And that now is, I think, the largest computer science master's in the United States. I think there's bigger ones in India and in places like Iran, but in the US it's the biggest. So the vision came along, let's just democratize education. Let's make it available for everybody in the world. And since Infosys is our host, we immediately started a collaboration with Infosys. Infosys has the largest corporate learning campus in the world in Mysore. It's incredibly impressive. And Infosys and many others, Siemens is a good example, have for decades understood how important training is. In thinking through what this could mean, building a global university, effectively, building a global brand, building a global educator, we had two insights, okay? The first insight was, if we partner with existing universities, we are basically shooting ourselves in the foot. And the reason is universities move very slowly. If you look at the average class at a university, in many ways, the materials, the technologies are often 10 years behind the world. The world moves so fast that many professors just can't keep up. So we felt if you want to be effective as an educator, you should go to the horse's mouth. You should go to the companies and work with the top tech companies. So we partnered with Google and Facebook and IBM and Amazon and many, many great tech companies in Europe, Mercedes and BMW and many others, to really build education that's bleeding edge. Our belief is anything you train today is probably outdated 3 years later. So you have to keep innovating. And the second insight was that the internet is just different. Okay, so the internet allows for a engagement model that's really different from classrooms. just picture yourself watching a movie and think about how amazing movies are and how they're being made. When cameras were first invented, the very first movies were literally kind of a taping of a screenplay, where the camera was placed in front of a stage and it recorded the screenplay with the curtains out. And these were movies like 100 years ago, 80 years ago. Movies today have special effects, they have animations, they have multiple camera perspectives. They're really great medium. And that evolution from like the initial theater screenplay to a modern action movie, that is what we can do in education. We can make education as engaging as video games. Right? So if you think about what is some of the most engaging online experiences, I would rank video games very high. And video games teach you something. They teach you something about a virtual world that someone invented. Often there is a riddle to solve. There's progress to be made. There's action. There's other actors you can interact with. And people who are addicted to video games, they live in these worlds and they learn. That what they learn is not very relevant. They won't find a job on it, but they do learn. Can we make education as addictive as a video game, right? Can we really get to the point? And that is such a difference from recording a professor and making a 45-minute recording available. And these two insights, like first work with industry because they know what they need and make it fun and engaging. It's been the driving force behind Udacity. And I'd say we are probably at 10% there and 90% still to go. But I think we've become probably the market leader when it comes to artificial intelligence, data science, any cloud, anything to do with digital transformation, including digital management training and digital leadership training. We have, of course, now had tens of millions of enrolls, and we graduated. We built our own degree, so we invented this thing called nanodegree to call it like a degree, so people understand it's a credential that you can take with you for the rest of your life. And I would say I love this panel because all of us are enlightened and understand how important this is. Mainstream people are not yet fully engaged in lifelong learning. Mainstream, the world is still behind. The world still believes you got to get your college degree from a reputable college and that's it. And that is a false belief because, as we've all seen, the world is accelerating. The world is moving faster and faster, and people live longer and longer. So there's no future in which lifelong learning would not be really important for every person on this planet. And in doing so, I think there's many great companies we saw today in the panel in universities. There's many, many more. We have to find ways to make these learning things relevant, make them small, make them engaging, make it so that every evening, instead of watching a movie, you just want to learn something. And we have to make them so that they transform people's careers, that when they do this, they get better off. They have a big advantage in the world. Now, stepping back and reflecting on what just happened. And up to, say, January 2020, I was often invited to give talks, and I would talk about digital transformation, about the advent of artificial intelligence. And then we got COVID. And then we lost, in the States, 40 million jobs. 40 million jobs worldwide, many, many, many more. We put our economies into a screeching halt. We closed our borders. And just last 2 weeks on top of it, we saw grave moments of social injustice. We saw people brutally being murdered. And we saw the world standing up worldwide and responding to it and asking for social justice in a way I have not experienced it in my lifetime. This is a first for all of us on this video conference. You're all at home. It's never happened before. It's a first for the world. And I say everything is accelerating. This is maybe a very quick preview which what would happen to us if we let global warming slip by. Because why would global warming be any nicer to us than a global epidemic? I'm an eternal optimist. I always want to see the good in people, I want to see the good in the world. And despite the tragic moments happening to us today, I do experience there are some very positive things happening. Maybe the most positive thing I've seen in terms of technology is this really new advent of video conferencing. And it's actually kind of amazing that we can have now these meaningful global get-togethers on a moment's notice. Before COVID, I spent maybe half my time traveling and get on the plane and off the plane, would give a keynote like this one, but the entire travel time around this keynote would take 2 days out of my life. And as a result, I declined almost all invitations. And I'm sure everybody here on this call engaged in business travel, and some of them probably in way too much business travel. And now I find that I can see my friends or talk to my colleagues or other business partners on a moment's notice. And I can do this, I get up, have my coffee, click the video button, and then have the conversation, and then go and have another coffee at home. And there's something magical in there. There's something magical that will make interaction between companies go faster. So whatever it took you in the past, say half a year to get a contract done, now it's going to take you 3 weeks. Okay? So any business process that exists will be accelerated. Okay? So understand that's going to affect every organization in everything we do. Moving faster will make us more flexible. If you ask about what's the history of the world, moving faster has always been the source of innovation. It's been the source of innovation when the printed book was invented because it moved information faster around than printed books. It's been a source of innovation when we got the internet, where things moved faster, and we got Facebook. Twitter is an example of information moving insanely fast. Twitter was a key element in the Arab Spring, is a key element of the current White House in the United States. Video conferencing will largely replace a whole segment of business travel, and it will make us move faster. So if you were scared about the world moving too fast before COVID, well, I have bad news for you. Be extra scared, because we just saw a massive acceleration in the world, and we don't even know what this means. If you thrive on change and thrive on innovation, and you believe that in the end, because people are good, the world will be good, and by reducing friction of information and friction of interaction, we can make the world better, faster, then you're born for this crisis. You're here to benefit from it. So I challenge everybody here, think about of all the things that were slow in your life, okay, whatever they were, in your business life or private life, and think of them, they're now 10 times as fast, okay? What does it mean for you? And what are the opportunities? As we make the world more efficient and the world faster, there's always opportunities. It's never bad. It's always been good, because guess what? Obstacles, slowness, friction are things we pay for. We pay with our time and our money. So now we have a world that can move much, much faster. I want to just appeal to everybody. These are trying times, and I've lost a good friend to COVID-19. Another good friend almost died. I've had literally riots in several places in the Bay Area, which is for America something we haven't seen in decades. And I'm sure wherever you are, you've witnessed things that are unimaginable. But I want you to also keep a positive outlook. We are all in this together. This is maybe the first time the entire world is in a crisis together. We're all suffering. people matter the most. These are moments that define us as humanity, that define us, our values. And this crisis will pass, and there will be life after the crisis. And in this new world, there will be new opportunities. And those who see those opportunities and can use them will win. Coming back to education, before I finish, just want to give an update on what happened with education in the crisis. This crisis has, for better or worse, been the golden age for online education. And for my company, Udacity in particular, we've seen the student engagement sign-up numbers go through the roof. To our surprise, we actually signed up a whole bunch of new companies that train their staff through us at a time where we believe, wow, our companies are scared. But there's strategic companies, actually a good number in Germany, like Bosch and others, who really felt this is the time to get our staff into online education. And the smart companies that we found, they have a very simple calculus. They say, look, our people are at home, they have more time at hand, right? So we got to give them something to do because they can't do their normal work at full efficiency. And yeah, the world's going to move faster. So topics like artificial intelligence, data science, cybersecurity, they'll be much more important after the crisis than they were before the crisis. And most companies realize that Wall Street or your stock exchange is not going to look at the financials for this quarter, next quarter, because they're so chaotic. So most companies are accelerating internally. I've met many CEOs who told me I had a 2-year roadmap and I decided to implement the entire 2-year roadmap in 1 quarter, right? Because now even CEOs can go wild. The entire metric to which companies are judged are off. If you just look at the S&P 500, it is so out of tune with what we see on Main Street. And that's because smart companies will be able to seize the moment and turn it into their advantage. So I believe this is the age of online learning. This is the age where the golden time where online learning becomes a first-class citizen, where lifelong learning becomes a first-class citizen, where skills training becomes a first-class citizen. And when next to the classical pillar of higher education, the colleges and universities, there will be a new pillar of higher education and lifelong education. And these are companies. Companies like Infosys and Siemens and so many others, and Airbus, who've for decades trained their own people, and companies like Udacity that assist other companies in training people, and universities that are online that do lifelong learning. There's so many of those universities now available, right? So we saw IE University as one example of doing really great global work. I think these kind of entities that used to be in the shadow of the MITs and Stanfords will now have their great defining moment. With that, I thank you for your attention worldwide. It's been really a privilege to be invited, to be honest. Thank you for doing this. I hope you can take a little bit of optimism back into your day and a smile, okay? And as you maybe smile and think of me today, and maybe you dedicate a smile to me, think about, now that things are faster, where are the opportunities and how can you get there? Because we are all in this together, but the ones who win are the ones who are smart, understand that this is also an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. A very somber yet an entire conversation that has had us all of charged. And of course, I think if we were to take back just a few bits from what we heard from you, it is about thriving on change. It is about a collective optimism. And if I can even add empathy, that's definitely going to see us through. But as we would like to end with a smile and give you more than a set of smiles, I'm sure all the digital natives are speaking through you when you said that you would want to make learning as addictive as video games. So thank you very much for that, Sebastian. You have a lot of digital natives rooting for you always. And definitely, we'd like to invite all the audience to log into infosys.com and access our Future of Learning journal, which we have just launched, titled Infosys Learning Lexicon, which has been created to celebrate all that the future of learning holds for us, both in terms of optimism and opportunities. With that, thank you everybody for being such a wonderful audience today. Stay safe, have a lovely rest of the evening or day, and a restful weekend ahead. Thank you.